Hi and welcome back. So in previous video, we discussed the Gerber data and I showed you the different files which are present in the Gerber data. Okay. And in this video, I'm going to take you to the online Gerber viewer software and there I will show you how exactly all those Gerber files look like. Okay. So here in this video, you will get more clarity about all the files which are actually present in the Gerber data. So now let's start with this video, which is Introduction to Gerber Viewer. So we are going to use an online Gerber Viewer tool. So you just have to search the Gerber Viewer and after that you have to click on this particular link, which is online Gerber Viewer PCB Gogo. Okay. And later this particular page will open. So I will just maximize this window and later from here you have to actually open the Gerber files. So I will click on this plus icon. And from here, we have to select all the Gerber files which are actually present in this particular folder, which is Gerber files. Okay. So I'm going to select these all files and you already know this is basically the default location where the Gerber files will be stored. So I'm going to select all of them and later I will click on open. And so this is how basically our PCB is going to look like. Okay. So that's basically the top layer. Then I will go to the bottom layer. So this is how the PCB is going to look like from the bottom side and later you can see this is basically another tab and from this particular tab you can actually see all the layers. Okay. So you can see here on the left hand side, these are actually all the layers for the top side. Then these are all the layers for the bottom side. Okay. So what I will do, I will disable all the layers first and I will enable all the layers one by one and later we will see how exactly that particular layer look like. Okay. So first of all, I will select this particular option, which is show file names. So you can see for copper top layer, this is basically the file coppertop.gbr. Okay. So that's basically the original name of the file. Okay. That we have opened in this particular online Gerber viewer tool. Now let's see all these files one by one. So I will enable this particular file, which is copper top. And so this Gerber file actually tells the manufacturer where the copper will be present and where the copper will not be present. Okay. So blue part that you see, this is all actually the copper part. Okay. So this particular location, then this particular location. So at all these locations, the copper will not be present. Okay. So this file actually tells the manufacturer where the copper will be present and where the copper will not be present. Okay. Then the next file is a solder mask file or solder mask top.gbr Gerber file. So I will just enable this particular file. So this is how basically the solder mask file look like. So I will just disable the copper top Gerber file. So that's how basically the solder mask file look like. So I will explain you this particular layer with the help of this image. So on this image, if you see at this location, there is actually the tin coating is there, or this particular part is actually the exposed copper. Okay. In the same way for this particular IC, these are actually the pads of this IC and this is actually the place where we are going to solder the component, okay, or pins of the IC, right? In the same way, this is actually the exposed pad. So wherever you see the exposed pads, all those pads will be hid with the help of this layer. So this layer actually tells the manufacturer where the green masking will be there and where green masking will not be there. So this is actually the green masking, okay, which you can see here. So green masking is actually present at all the locations except the locations which are actually shown in this particular file, okay. So solder mask file actually tells the manufacturer where the green masking will be present and where the green masking will not be present, okay. So these are actually all the exposed pads or all the exposed location where only tin coating will be there, okay. So I will hide this particular layer now and let's open the silk screen layer. So this particular layer tells the manufacturer where the ligands will be present or the designators will be present on the PCB. Okay. So this you can see from this particular layer. So this layer actually shows all the ligands and the designators of all the components. Okay. So now I will hide this particular layer and later I will open this particular layer, which is solder paste layer. So whenever we have to solder our board using the solder paste, at that time we actually use this stencil. Okay. So the PCB manufacturer used this particular file in order to create this stencil. Okay. So this file is actually going to help the PCB manufacturer to create the stencil for that particular, board. Okay. So on this board, you can see, so on this board, whenever we will do the soldering of this board using the solder paste, the solder paste will be actually applied at this location, and all the pads that you see on this PCB, at all those locations, the solder paste will be applied. Okay. So solder paste will not be applied in the green masking area or rest of the area. Okay. So wherever the tin coating is there, at all those locations, the solder paste will be applied, right? So this particular layer actually tells the PCB manufacturer how exactly the stencil will look like and where the cutouts will be present on the stencil. Okay. So that's basically the layer for the stencil. Then the next layer is copper layer. So copper bottom. So I will just enable this particular layer. So again, you can see this is how basically the copper bottom layer look like. And again, this particular layer tells the manufacturer where the copper will be present on the bottom layer and where the copper will not be present. Okay. So I will hide this particular layer now, and after that I will enable this layer, which is solder mask bottom. So again, at this particular location, there will be no green masking, and at rest of the location, the green masking will be present. Okay. So this particular layer tells the manufacturer where the green masking should be present and where the green masking should not be present. Okay. So at all these locations, these are actually the pads of the PCB. So these are actually all the exposed copper area. Okay. And on top of this copper area, the tin coating will be there. And at rest of the location, the green masking will be present. Okay. So I hope that this particular layer is now clear to you. Now we don't have any component on the bottom side. That's why there is actually no bottom silkscreen Gerber file. And also there is no solder paste bottom Gerber file. Okay. So in our PCB, we don't need a stencil for the bottom side because there is no component on the bottom side. So we don't have to apply the solder paste on the bottom side, right? So only whenever we have to solder the components using, solder paste, in that case only we need to order, the stencil. But in our case, we are actually going to do the soldering of the PCB, manually using the soldering and soldering wire. We are not going to use the solder paste to, to solder the PCB. That's why we don't need this stencil. Okay. So I hope that this particular point is now clear. Then the next point is outline. So this particular layer actually tells the manufacturer what's the outline of the PCB, and also it also tells where the holes on the PCBs are actually present. Holes means mounting holes. Okay. So these are actually all NPTH holes. NPTH actually stands for non-path through holes. Okay. So wires which are actually present on our PCB, they are actually called as path through hole because they makes the continuity or contact from the top layer to the bottom layer. Okay. But these holes actually they are not going to make the contact from the top layer to bottom layer. Okay. So they are actually not connecting the top copper with the bottom copper. Okay. That's why they are actually called as NPTH, which stands for non-path through hole. Okay. So these are holes, but they are actually not making the contact from the top layer to bottom layer. That's the reason they are actually called as NPTH, which stands for non-path through hole. Okay. So I hope that this particular point is now clear. And after that, I will enable all the layers now one by one. So just enjoy the view. So that's basically the top copper layer. Then that's basically the solder mask layer. Then the silk screen layer. Then solder paste layer. Okay. Top solder paste layer. Then that's basically the bottom copper layer. Then the bottom solder mask layer. And later the outline layer. Okay. So these all file constitute of the Gerber file. And I hope that every single thing that we discussed is now clear to you regarding the Gerber data. Okay. Now I will add the file, which is a drill file. So I will just navigate to the location where drill file is stored. So I will select this one. I will click on open. So that's how basically the drill file look like. And this file is actually going to tell the manufacturer where he has to create the holes on the PCB. Okay. So these are actually the mounting holes on our PCB. Then here there will be a DC female jack. So these are actually the holes for the DC female jack. And these are actually the holes for the wires which are actually present on our PCB. So they are actually also called as PTH, which stands for path through hole. Okay. So PTH is actually the name of technology via, or PTH are actually used to connect two layers. Okay, so these are all the vias, then these are actually the pads of the through-hole component. Okay, so that was all about the Gerber files, and I hope that every single thing that we discussed regarding the Gerber files in this video and in previous video is now clear to you. And if you still have any kind of doubt regarding any file which is present in the Gerber files, then you reach to me and I will help you with that. Okay. Alright, so that's what I wanted to tell in this video. Now I will see you in the next video, which is about pre-ordering procedure. So I will see you in the next video now.